What continuously emerges in various forms in ancient traditions is a teaching that, in man, in addition to the physical body, there are essentially free entities or principles, each endowed with its own character and destiny. The first principle corresponds to the conscious I, typical of the waking state, which arose with the body and was formed in parallel with its biological development. The second principle was called demon, manes, lar, and even double. The third and last principle corresponds to what proceeds from the first entity after death. For most people, it is the shadow. As long as a person belongs to nature, the ultimate foundation of a human being is the daimon, or demon. In this context, the term does not have the evil connotation Christianity bestowed upon it. When man is considered, the demon could be defined as the deep force that originally produced consciousness in the finite form that is the body, in which it lives during its residence in the visible world. In the Hindu tradition, the demon corresponds to that principle of man's inner being called linga saraya. The word linga contains the idea of a generating power. It is also very significant that totems have often been associated with the souls of selected animal species, and that especially the snake, essentially a telluric animal, has been associated in the classical world with the idea of a demon or of genius. According to esoteric teachings, at the death of the body, an ordinary person usually loses his or her personality, which was an illusory thing even while that person was alive. The person is then reduced to a shadow that is itself destined to be dissolved after a more or less lengthy period, culminating in what is called the second death. The essential vital principles of the deceased return to the totem, which is a primordial, perennial, and inexhaustible matter. Life will again proceed from this matter and assume other individual forms, all of which are subject to the same destiny. This is the reason why totems, manes, lares, or penates, the gods of the Roman people, were identified with the dead. The souls of the deceased continue to exist in the daimons into whom they were dissolved, but also in those forces of the stock, the race, or the family, in which the life of these daimons was manifested and perpetuated. This teaching concerns the naturalistic order. There is, however, a second teaching related to a higher order and a different, more privileged, aristocratic, and sacred solution to the problem of survival after death. The heroes or demigods to whom the higher caste and the noble families traced their lineage were beings who at death did not emanate a shadow that was destined to die. Instead, they were beings who had achieved the self-subsistent, transcendent, and incorruptible life of a god. They were those who had overcome the second death. The Christian dogma of the resurrection of the flesh that will take place on Judgment Day is the last echo of this idea, which can be traced back to prehistoric times. In these instances, death did not represent an end but a fulfillment. It was a triumphal death, bestowing immortality, and was the reason why, in some Hellenic traditions, the deceased was called hero and dying was called generating demigods, or why the deceased was portrayed wearing a crown made with the same myrtle that identified those who were going to be initiated into the Eleusinian mysteries, or why, in the Catholic liturgical language, the day of death is called dies natalis, or day of birth. Likewise, in Egypt, the tombs of the deceased who had been dedicated to Osiris were called houses of immortality, and the afterlife was conceived as the land of triumph. This dwelling of the immortals was variously represented as a height, heaven, or an island, from the Nordic Valhalla and Asgard to the Aztec Inca House of the Sun, that was reserved for kings, heroes, and nobles. The sacred foundation of the authority the elders enjoyed in several ancient civilizations lies in similar ideas. People saw in the elders, who were closer to death, the manifestation of the divine force that was thought to achieve its full liberation at death. The attainment of immortality, or the victory over adverse powers of dissolution, is related to wholeness, namely to the inseparability of the soul from the body, better yet, from a body that does not undergo decay. There is a very suggestive Vedic formula. Leaving behind every fault, go back home. Filled with splendor, be reunited with your body.